This is a demonstration on using the Tessellation tool in spatialxl. The Tessellation tool can be used to create a repeating pattern of areas with no overlap around a certain area on the map. These areas can then be used to group, classify, or aggregate underlying point data. So you can see here on my map, I have some points plotted, which are retail outlets, and I want to create certain areas around these points so that I can then assign and classify them. And I'll use the Tessellation tool to do that. The tool can be found in the Tools tab over here under Spatial Tools. So you'll see here the first thing is the shape that you choose. So that'll be the shape of the cells in the tessellation. There's rectangle and hexagon. I'll use a rectangle for this example. Then there are two boundary modes you can use. You can either manually draw the boundary within which it will do the tessellation, or you can have it as select and then select on the map an existing boundary to use for the tessellation. In this example, you can see I have a district layer here showing the districts of the country. And so I'm going to first use the district itself here as the boundary by selecting it with the select mode. So I have it on select, and then I'm going to use one of the selection tools, come to the map, click on the area, the district of City of Johannesburg here, have it selected. Then there is the origin X, Y, and Z axes. This you do not need to worry about if you're working in a 2D flat plane like this. It will automatically pick up the correct axes. So you can leave that as is. And then you're going to come down to the width and height here, which defines the size of the cells of the tessellation. This is in meters. So in this case, I want 5 kilometer by 5 kilometer blocks for this area to be divided into. So I'm going to put 5,000 for 5 kilometers for the width and height. And then I can go ahead and say draw tessellation. There we go. It's drawn my tessellation for me. It's divided that area up into these 5 kilometer by 5 kilometer blocks. And I can now use this tessellation to actually classify and assign my points into groupings, or do some aggregations of the points into these certain areas, etc. So what I'll first do here is I'll come to the tessellation layer that it added here. It's a new one for me. And then I'm going to go to its properties and just make it a bit more transparent so I can see the points underneath it. There we go. And now I actually want to classify my points to find out, okay, which grid block do they lie within. You can see the tool gives a unique ID to these grids so that you can use that for classifying your points. So I'm going to use the classify tool to do that. My retail outlets on the map here are linked to the retail outlets worksheet here. I'm going to clear my filter on the worksheet first. Then I'm going to select the column at the end here, and then open up the classify tool in the spatialxl ribbon. So it has already picked up my worksheet, retail outlets. The layer that I'm going to use to classify my points is the tessellation layer. Down here, it picked up my column I'm selecting, column AC, and the classify column that I want to pull through from my tessellation layer is the ID column, which has this unique ID for each grid block. Then I'll say classify. It's done. I'll give this new column a name, call it test area. And now if I put a filter on this new column here, you'll see that it actually assigned to each point where does that point lie within which grid block here, and it's actually classified them for me. So now, for example, if I want to see all the points that are in block G8 only, then I can come here and filter on G8. There we go. They are my points that have been assigned to this area over here, this 5 kilometer by 5 kilometer block, and it has been classified. You can do some other things once you have this tessellation. So you can use it to classify and assign your points into certain areas like I just did. And the reason you might want to do this is, for example, if you're clustering your points for a sales rep to go visit points in a certain area and you don't want them to go outside of a certain boundary of distance, for example, 2 kilometers or 5 kilometers, then you can actually assign those points into these areas so that they stay within a certain area and it can be used for that. You can also get aggregations of the points into these areas to find out stuff like what is the total sales of all the stores in this particular grid block, this particular area, etc. So an example of that is I'll use the aggregate tool now. So I'll come to tools, open aggregate. The layer from is going to be my retail outlets. The layer 2 is the tessellation layer. And then you can see it's already there from a previous time where I was doing this, but I'm going to clear that to show you. So the field you're going to choose from your points layer, what field you want to aggregate. In this case, it'll be my total volume of sales. The aggregation type will be sum, and it's going to add a new column name here to my tessellation layer, giving me the aggregated values. Say aggregate, it's done. Now if I open up my tessellation layer, you'll see it's actually given me the data of what are the total volume of sales of all the points within each of these different areas. So I could even do a sorting now on this column. Now I can come to the top and I can find, okay, this area has the highest volume of aggregated sales. So I can even zoom and highlight now and find that area, and that is over here. Now I'm going to show you one more example using the draw boundary mode of the tessellation tool instead, and not using an existing boundary like I did. So turn that one off. I'm going to focus in on these points over here instead. And then I'm going to open up the tessellation tool again. And this time I'm going to actually use a different shape just for fun over here. And I'm going to choose hexagon. And then I'm going to make the boundary mode draw. I'm also going to change the size of the cells because I'm in a closer, smaller area that I'm going to draw around. So I'm going to make it instead 1.5 kilometer by 1.5 kilometer cell size. That'll be 1,500 meters. And then I can click the draw boundary button, come to my map and start drawing the boundary around the exact area where I want the tessellation to be done. And I can double click to finish. It has the boundary, and now I can say draw tessellation. There we go, it's done. It's drawn my tessellation, given a unique ID to each cell area. Again, I can make this a bit more transparent to see beneath, and you can see it's actually grouped or split up my points quite nicely into their own little zones. And I can now also go ahead and do a classification of the points into the area they're lying within, aggregate data about them into the different cells, etc. And that's the demonstration on the tessellation tool in spatialxl. Thank you.